Ladies and gentlemen.
I saw this pitiful review that was almost a troll. I couldn't decide if it was serious or if they were trolling Meghan. They had all of these people who work for the Times of London to sit down and taste a bunch of samples of jam. They had that really good French jam that's in the grocery store, but it's delicious. I cannot remember. You know, comes in the jar that everyone ends up using as glasses. I mean, we do. It's like the only glasses that aren't broken in our house are jam jars. I don't know how to say it, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And then they had Smucker's, and then they had Meghan's jam. And not a one of them picked anything but Meghan's jam. In fact, one guy, and they're all blindfolded, right? They're all blindfolded. Supposedly, they don't know what they're tasting. And they try the French jam. Oh, no, I don't like that. And then they try the Smucker's. Oh, it's a little bit better. And then they try Meghan's. I can taste Montecito in these berries. I can taste the sun. I can taste freedom. And at that point, when they were literally mentioning Montecito, I was like, oh, you guys are trolling Meghan. Like, this is not a legitimate blind taste test. This is a joke.
Don't like the texture. Doesn't taste like nothing at all. I think this one is my favorite.
Quite nice, bright kind of jam flavour. Feels like slightly thicker. This is more of a serious jam, I think. But I have absolutely no idea. So this is a lot tartar, a lot more, a bit more fruity. It's got a bit more of a zing to it. I think this is my favourite. This one I feel like I'm nosing around in Montecito. Yeah, in a raspberry bush.
I think Meghan's is this one.
I think number 3 is Meghan's.
I reckon this is the Duchess jam.
I think Meghan Markle's jam is jam number 3.
I was like, some of these people are in on it. Some of you guys know. Some of you did this on purpose to throw shade at her. This is not a legitimate taste testing experience. But anyway, Meghan was also in the news this past week, not just for the bought and paid for reviews from the Times of London, but we saw her put out a second episode of her podcast. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I did not make it through that. I know. It's like, it's money on the table that I'm just leaving there not to do a review about Meghan's podcast. And yet I love my brain cells so much that it's just hard for me to want to sacrifice them on the altar of the Meghan Markle money. But I did catch a few highlights, and Meghan, sensing an opportunity to talk about herself and her own pain, says, now I know you have talked about this before, about, your losses. And I just want to see, I want to ask your permission to go deeper, and then just like dives right in. And she clearly is wanting to talk about her miscarriages, because you'll recall back in 2020, she wrote a whole piece about the losses we share, in which she let us all know that she'd had a miscarriage. Now, if she did have a miscarriage, I've said this many times on this channel, my heart goes out to her. The loss of a child is egregious affair. You just don't get over it. It doesn't matter. It does not matter if it was an early miscarriage, a late miscarriage. Devastating. There were details in this story that made me go, well, you're just a liar. Like the part when she said that they took the baby's remains and buried it on a tree in their property. I'm like, you didn't, because that's illegal. But also, if you did, we're authorities. We need to check up on some baby remains. You know what I mean? It's like, you didn't, though. So it's like, well, I would love to be able to have a human moment and actually care about something that she says happened. She then goes on to provide so many shoddy details that it's like, not buying it. However, she used this opportunity in this podcast of hers to recall back to that loss that she's talked about before. And she was trying to generate a moment for you as a listener, and also create rapport to, once again, on the back of somebody else's pain related to their pregnancies. Because again, did Meghan really suffer any pain during pregnancies? We'll never know. But she's jumping on this person's pregnancy to once again validate the story that she has children, that she's a mom, and now she wants to talk about loss. But the clip that was going around I listened to multiple times because I thought, do I just care so little about this that I don't understand? Like, is she saying something meaningful and I'm just being like mean and doing like, it doesn't make any sense? I listened to it once, I listened to it twice, I listened to it 3 times, and by the 3rd time I thought, no, she's not making sense. Stop trying to give her credit where no credit is due. So here's a clip where she is talking about her miscarriage. I think she's trying to tie it into just the difficulties of life when you think something's going to go one way and then it goes a different way. But nothing she's saying is making sense. And her guest is once again in some kind of hazy atmosphere in which she thinks that what Megan just said is worthy of a compliment on its articulation and clarity, and it isn't. And I'm like, okay, all of you guests need to stop giving Megan credit where no credit is due. She didn't say anything that made sense. She just like word vomited. And then I'm supposed to be like, bravo, thanks for saying it, girl. You're like reading my diary. I can't believe you articulated my soul, my spirit, my feelings so well. So just give it a listen.
I'll bring this up if you're comfortable talking about it, because I know you've spoken publicly about, as you were doing Girls Who Code, all the interpersonal things that are happening for you at that time, and the miscarriages that you've experienced. I've spoken about the miscarriage that we experienced.
Yeah.
And I think in some parallel way, when you have to learn to detach from the thing that you have so much promise and hope for, and to be able to be okay at a certain point to let something go that you plan to love for a long time.
That's really yeah. I was going to say, I feel like you're like reading my diaries. Like that's really it's really insightful, because I don't think anyone's seen it that way, like said it that way for me.
Did that make sense to you? It's not because it's a clip that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because it doesn't make sense. All right. Now, again, later on in the podcast, she's talking about her most favorite title is the title of mom. That's the one that she holds the most dear. That's the crown on her head. That's what makes her queen bee. And I just want to say, well, if you love being a mom, what about teaching your kids some basic table manners? What about, putting your mom hat on for that? Because she shared a clip earlier this week of some cake that Harry had brought home from the Ukraine. We see Lilibet's hands literally tearing into this cake, like a little orphan child who hasn't seen food in a week, passing out the pieces. Quick, get some before mommy takes it away. And we see the hands of who I assume is supposed to be Archie. And they're handing out these chunks of cake to the nanny. And it's the nanny because those aren't Megan's hands. Megan would go nowhere without her gold bracelets and her Cartier watch. Where are her diamond rings? Where's her diamond pinky ring? Those are the hands of the nanny, right? And so the cake's being passed about, ravaged. And I just can't imagine posting this video on my Instagram when I'm trying to thank the people from Ukraine for sending this basket of Easter goodies. Why did you bother to place the Ukrainian Orthodox Easter egg right there and create this little scene? Well, the little hands ravage the cake. How about cutting it nicely, putting it on some plates? Like, whatever happened to elevating the moment, Megan? You just throw a cake your kid's way and be like, have at it, whatever. And you post that? I mean, that just seemed like a really disrespectful way to enjoy the gift. No, let's all be honest. Who hasn't eaten a piece of cake with their hands? I mean, I have. Cut yourself a little sliver, But I wouldn't post about it or post this video about my little 3-year-old daughter just ripping into the cake and handing chunks around in what appears to be the scavenge for food because mommy forgot to feed us again. I mean, I don't know. It's just like it had negative vibes to me.